All right, 3D printing part two. Um, I want to go over a few more things, a little bit more advanced stuff, but not super uh, super advanced things. Just some more things you need to know. If you've got a part that has a threaded hole, okay, like this one in Inventor, it will not print the threads because these threads are cosmetic within Inventor. So when you pull it in to GrabCAD, it's just going to be a hole. And I'll show you how some of those things, how we deal with some of those things. An object like this, we've got a surface texture applied to it. Well, GrabCAD will not print a surface texture unless you've actually modified your part with another software like Rhino to create an actual surface texture. Because in Inventor, this is just a graphic. Okay, there's no actual texture to the surface of that. So it's a much more involved process to actually create a surface, a textured surface. And we're not, I'm not really concerned about, cast iron. But if you wanted a texture like leather, or like a leaf and the veins in a leaf, or a wood grain that has actual texture to it, it's possible to do it. It's just it's a lot more complicated than what we're going to be dealing with. Okay. One thing that you may run into is that some parts, for some reason, when I've tried to bring them into GrabCAD, it will not accept them in a native format. So I have to create an STL file. And to do that, and you may find that if there's a lot of online programs that you could use, Fusion is one. Google SketchUp, there's several others. And you save the part as an STL file or a step file. And let's see. Oh. And I want to export it as a CAD format. And I'll change my file type right down here. And STL seems to be the most common one that is used. But before you do this, you want to go to Options, and you want to change whatever your units are here to what you've created the file as. But you got to remember what it was once we get over to GrabCAD. So I'm going to leave it at inches because the part was created in inches. I want to set my resolution to high, and then we'll look at it once we bring it in. And if you've got a curved surface, it really makes a difference. And so we may have to come back and play with some of these deviations right here. But we definitely want to set resolution to high. And we'll say OK, and then I'll save it. All right, so let's go to GrabCAD. And I want to bring in that wheel. Where are you at? Right here. I want to work with this one first. Okay, so keeping in mind this thing, 3D printing is in layers. And so that means every layer is printed horizontally. So that means coming up the edge here is going to be a whole bunch of little stair steps. So it's going to have a bunch of little ridges on it. So to print this one, we're better off laying it down on its side as opposed to having it up vertical like that. And so I would arrange it, orient. Okay, so I would arrange it in this format. And now when it prints, let me go to a top view. When the printer head comes in, it always has a starting point, and usually it's like here on the right side or somewhere on the right side, and it'll come to here and start, and then it'll print around in a circle and stop, and then it'll come to the end, keep going with the layer, and then when it goes up to the next layer, it comes back to that same starting point and starts around, and so it leaves a little ridge coming up the edge, and so the way to deal with that is in my model settings. We go to face, and we choose that cylinder face, and we go right here, avoid seams. Okay, and then what that will do is it changes the location of that start and stop point. Okay. Now then, let's go back to that again, model settings. And if I choose that hole, I can come here and apply an insert, and it allows me to do some things here, and I can apply some different metallic inserts into that hole, and it will resize the hole based on what insert I'm going to use. Now, I don't have any inserts in the lab at this point, but it would be like a threaded insert that would already have a thread to it, or maybe it's a sleeve so that you would actually have a metallic hole here for an axle to go through. Okay, and a heat set is like you'd put the metal sleeve up against the plastic and then heat it with a soldering iron to get the metal hot, and it starts melting the plastic, and you can push it on through. Okay, so we're not dealing with any of those things other than to know to deal with the avoid seams right there. Okay. All right, and I'm going to delete that part out, and I want to bring in this one I modified with the threads. And so you can see there are no threads right there. It's just a hole the size that we made it in Inventor. Okay. Now let's bring in that STL file. Adjust threads right here. Okay, so here's the STL file. And see, it brought it in. Well, my units for this tray is in millimeters, but that part was in inches. So I need to change my units here back to inches. Okay, and then that brought it in, that resized it to the correct size. And so let's orient that. Now, one of the things that I have seen in dealing with STL files is anytime you've got a circle, you can see it may be hard to see in the video, but instead of this being a pure circle like it was in Inventor, it's like little steps. It's a whole bunch of straight lines that are creating the circle. And that, if you remember, is where we changed our resolution. If we come back to the wheel, and let's do this one, it'll give us a good representation of it. And I'm going to leave it on medium resolution. So let's bring that one in, and maybe that will show you. Yeah, now you can see all those little lines across there. That's because it's a whole bunch of straight lines, almost like, a super hexagon or something. And if I zoom in on it, you can see those edges, they're straight lines. And when it prints, it will be a whole bunch of straight lines. So if you're going to work with an STL file and you got curved surfaces, then you really need to adjust that resolution up, and you may have to work with the sliders a little bit to get the image that you're wanting. And, I think that pretty much covers all the things that I wanted to talk about on 3D printing. hopefully, oh yeah, let me go back to here. We may need to know who's printing what. So if you need to put your name or initials or something in it, the best way to do it is to either engrave it or emboss it in some way. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to put some text right here. Let's make it all caps. And 1/8" text is not going to be very big. I don't know how much room I've got there, so let me try 1/4" text. And a block style text is better. You don't want to, you know, anything with a serif. You can use the Tahoma would work. Arial is a fairly common. Okay, so we could actually go a little bit bigger if we wanted to. And then we can either emboss or engrave. Embossing, actually raising it up tends to print better than engraving into it. The height or the depth of it needs to be at least one layer of whatever your build layer is. If you're engraving, then 2 to 3 layers looks better. Okay, but we'll go ahead and raise that up. And so it'll print. There's still going to be some fuzzy edges around that once it prints. Okay. And we'll go ahead and bring that in here. Oh, I need to save it first on. And we'll bring it in and show you how it looks here. And so you see there it is. That pretty much covers everything, okay? So if you got questions, just holler at us, and myself or the lab tutors there can help you with all the printing.